Master Your Mindset Radio, episode 88.
Welcome to Master Your Mindset Radio, the show where we empower you to conquer limiting beliefs and transform your world with your gifting and purpose. Now for your host, Elizabeth Nader.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. Today we are talking about blind spots. Blind spots that you have in your life and how to deal with them. Now you may be thinking, I don't have any blind spots, or maybe that concept is not something that is part of your vernacular, but by the time we're done talking for the next few minutes, I expect you will see that you do, because we all have blind spots. They happen when we let our emotions and our unconscious thoughts really influence our behaviors, influence our choices, and usually that influence is harmful. Blind spots are usually things that hurt us. Blind spots are things that hold us back. Blind spots are things that we can't seem to get past, even though other people can see them. They present a danger to us, much like that blind spot in the car that you have, right? There's a blind spot on each side of you when you're driving, and it's that area that someone else, some other car can get into, and you literally can't see them for that moment. You can't see them. And if you can't see them and you don't recognize that, you potentially could turn and crash into them, which is why now with all the new car technology for the past few years, most cars have these blind spot indicators, which are great. They're usually on the side mirrors and they tell you that someone is now in your blind spot. I still turn and look old-fashioned. I just don't trust that. But it's interesting that that's a technology that people have wanted and that's been really successful in cars to help reduce crashes, to let you know someone is in your blind spot. Ironically, too, we actually have a blind spot in our eyes. There's a small surface area in our eyes that have no nerve cells, and therefore it doesn't receive any light and therefore doesn't produce an image. But our brain is so intelligent that it's able to bring the light coming in from around the blind spot and just project similar information onto the blind spot in place of it. So we get a full image instead of having a piece of it missing. Of course, our brain is so powerful, but we each have a blind spot in our eyeball. So blind spots are part of what we deal with on a daily basis, but I bet you haven't thought that much about the ones you have in your life. And I think it's a great term to refer to things that are holding you back or things you've been struggling with, things that you just sort of automatically do or automatically don't do because it is a stronghold or a blind spot. And we don't see it. We don't see it. We keep doing the same thing with the same results and we're unhappy and we don't see it. Or people in our lives will say, why are you friends with that person? They're bad for you, and we don't see it. Or we keep having the same issues in romantic relationships and we go from one to the next and that same issue keeps coming up, but we're not seeing it. It's this blind spot. It's like we go blind to information about ourselves that's troubling. It's denial is what it really is. And that is a tricky thing. It's not that you can't perceive information, but we automatically refuse to let it come into our conscious realm. So while we know maybe somebody is bad for us, some relationship is bad for us, it's not that we can't see it. It's that we go into overdrive automatically, denying it entry into the conscious realm. So we don't have to deal with it. It's a blind spot. Our behavior that maybe keeps causing us problems and we keep denying it, we don't even allow it to come into our conscious realm. So we just have created this amazing ability to deny that it even exists. Because if we don't do that, we're concerned, right? We're concerned we're going to feel pain, or we're going to have to make a decision we don't want to have to make, or deal with something we don't want to deal with. So blind spots are interesting because they're such a strong form of denial that even trying to identify them is almost a paradox in life, because you're not even aware of it anymore. You've created such a strong fence of denial around it that you don't even recognize that blind spot anymore. So trying to say identifying it and overcoming it is kind of a joke because you don't even know that it's there. It's not like you can admit to it without the help of others in your life. So I think the step towards dealing with them first that we want to talk about is the identification of them. What does that mean? It is a paradox, right? It's difficult. You need people in your life to be able to help you point out where you may have issues. Now, some signs for you would be repetitive experiences, things that keep happening to you. That may be a sign that you have a blind spot. You say, why does this keep happening? Why do I experience the same thing over and over again? Is that a sign of a blind spot? And if so, what you may want to do is ask other people in your life, hey, do you see this as an issue? So something that's repetitive, a repetitive experience, a negative experience, obviously, a repetitive pattern in a relationship, a repetitive way of doing things that you can't seem to change, just patterns in your life. It seems like maybe the way you might say it is your luck never changes, or you keep having the same relationship with different people. That's a sign that there may be a blind spot. So you also may find that people will consistently describe you to yourself or others in a way that doesn't fit your self-image. Here's another sign, is that people see you in a way you don't see yourself. Now, I'm not talking necessarily about negative ways or where people are trying to give you a hard time about something, but where people consistently tell you maybe a talent you have or a gift that you have or complimenting you and you don't see it. Is that a blind spot? Because it's not always just something that you keep doing that's negative you're hiding with a blind spot. It's also sometimes an inability for you to recognize a gifting that you have, an inability for you to see yourself correctly because you have a blind spot. So we've got to deal with our blind spots. And in order to do that, we need to find them. Rather than going around and asking your friends and loved ones, hey, what blind spots do I have? Start with looking at your life and looking at each part of your life and saying, where do I struggle? Where do I feel like things are difficult for me? What are the things I don't like in my life, frankly? What are the things that I wish would change? What keeps happening and just never changes year after year after year? Is there a blind spot associated with that? So you start the process. And one way that I have people do this is to take that wheel that I've given people before. And if you've been with me for a while, you've probably done this. It's a wheel, a circle, I should say, and I call it the wheel of life. And you divide it up into different segments and you label those segments. So you might have money, relationship, marriage, children, spirituality, business, career, however you want to label these segments or pieces of the pie, if you will. And then you decide, how satisfied am I in that area of my life? And let's say you're 70% satisfied. What can you do? What are the steps you can take to improve that to 80 to 90%? So you go through all of that and you'll see the areas in your life that you're struggling the most. And that may be a good indicator of where there are some blind spots, especially if that area of your life isn't changing. If it's something that keeps reoccurring or a problem that you aren't overcoming, that's a way for you to find where there may be blind spots. And then ask your friends, ask your loved ones, is there something in this specific area of my life that you think is holding me back? Is there something that you hear people tell me or you tell me that I don't seem to absorb or I don't seem to embrace? Is there something that you think is negative in this part of my life that I'm not overcoming? A bad habit, something that I'm not recognizing in a relationship, something that I need to change? Asking people who love you will often help you see and reveal the blind spot that you may have. Now, some people don't want to heal their blind spots. Some people want to stay in denial. Why would they do that? It's fear of the unknown. It's fear of knowing what will happen if I deal with that. What will that feel like? Because a blind spot is something that we're in such heavy denial about that we don't even think about it. It's not like we think about it every day. It's a blind spot. So we don't know what it would feel like if we got rid of it. We don't know, and that's scary. Change can be scary. However, the truth is, with almost every blind spot, if you deal with it correctly, on the other side of it is freedom from that, is change in that area of your life that you've struggled with, is a new way of seeing yourself, is an elevated sense of possibility. There's so much on the other side of the blind spot, but you have to be vulnerable and you have to be willing to admit, hey, that's a blind spot for me. Now, identification is huge, so take it slowly if you have to. Just the fact alone that you're willing to search for the blind spots, you're willing to ask, you're willing to do the work, and even admit to them right there is incredible. Dealing with them and getting rid of them, that's another phase. It's not always easy, but you can do it. But being able to say to someone, hey, that's a blind spot for me, that right there is enough of a move forward that you can begin to build from that point. And then you can decide, all right, I'm done with this. I'm finally going to get rid of it. It's much like getting rid of a limiting belief, just like we talk about in the book, in my book, we talk about in other podcasts. It's much like dealing with a limiting belief. You have to replace that blind spot with truth. And in order to do that, you've got to go through the work. You've got to go through that pain and struggle to get to the other side of it. Because a blind spot really is a lie that you're believing. It really is. It's no different than a limiting belief. It's just taken root. It's a different way to talk about it. And sometimes it's a relationship that's a blind spot, or your inability to do something that you know you've had to do for years and years and years. So look at the patterns in your life. Look at things that are repeating. Look at things you always struggle with. Look at areas that you want to improve and for some reason you're not able to. Look for patterns. Patterns point to blind spots, and blind spots hold us back. So I hope you are encouraged to find them, to challenge yourself to deal with them, and to get rid of them from your life, because on the other side of a blind spot is freedom and a whole bunch of growth. So deal with your blind spots, guys. Talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to Master Your Mindset Radio. Before you go, if you want to be part of a free online community of like-minded individuals for support, resources, and inspiration as you conquer your limiting beliefs and pursue your purpose, go to elizabethnader.com/community. That's elizabethnader.com/community, or search for Master Your Mindset Academy private group on Facebook. Looking forward to seeing you online.